Hello, 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 hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We will be starting in couple of minutes. So by then, you can call your friends. Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. We will be starting in a couple of minutes. By then, you can call your friends. Hello everyone. So welcome back to the yet another session of Summer of Robotics, Sensor and Perception. So I hope you all are doing great and excited for the today's session. So till now we have built a robot. It has body, it has wheels, it can move inside the Gazebo. But let me ask a simple question. Imagine I close your eyes and ask you to walk through a crowded room. Can you do it? Maybe for a few seconds, but eventually you will hit something. That is exactly where our robot currently stands. It can move, but it doesn't know what's around it. Today we are going to give our robot something you must naturally have: the eyes, the sense of balance, and the ability to estimate, position, and recognize objects. In short, today our robot becomes aware of its surroundings. So in the last session, we built the robot's body. We learned about nodes, topics, services, parameters, packages, and basics of URDF, RVs, gazebo simulation, differential drive using caster wheel board. So basically, we created the robot. Today we will make Today we will make it intelligent. By the end of this session, our robot will see the world through camera, measure distance using LiDAR, understand its own motion using IMU, and estimate its position using sensor fusion, detect and track objects using OpenCV, and perform AI-based object recognition using YOLO V8. So let's get started. Before giving before giving our robot sensors, let's first improve the robot itself. Our previous robot used a caster wheel, which works fine. But most sensors in autonomous vehicles don't use that configuration. Why? Because of sustainability issues. Think about a military tank. They use four-wheel skid steer configurations. Instead of one fixed caster wheel, we now add two more driven wheels. Yet turning is achieved by controlling left and right wheels independently. Left wheels move faster than the robot turns right, and if the right wheels move faster than the robot turns left, exactly like a tank. Here is the caster wheel pot we made till the last session. So first of all, we will update the URDF and add two more wheels. In the step one, we will attach the wheels to robot's base. In the last session, we saw the joint type was fixed for the caster wheel, but this time it's continuous to rotate the wheel perfectly. Similarly, we give it position, parent link, axis of rotation, effort and velocity limits, damping constants. After that, we create the wheel body and add mass and inertial properties around different axes. Then in step 3, we will add the collision model to perform physical interactions with the environment, and finally add visual model to look like a green colored cylinder in simulation. So after doing the same for the right wheels, you can launch the check URDF file and see now it has four wheels and the joint state publisher window shows limits for those wheels as well. Now friction. Suppose I put soap on the floor. Now try running. What happens? Exactly, I will slip. The same thing happens to robots. So we think wheels automatically move robots, which is not true. Wheel push against the ground pushes back. That interaction is friction. It makes the simulation realistic. Without friction, many bots can't turn properly, grippers can't hold objects, and also gives inaccurate odometry due to wheel slipping. So see this. The wheels are rotating, but the robot behaves unnaturally without friction. But how do we add friction in Gazebo? For that, we have to define the physical physics behind the friction as Gazebo reference tags to create realistic contact surfaces with friction. We define mu1 as primary traction along robot's motion, mu2 as sideways traction, which helps in turning, KPKD keeps the springy and the shock absorbing behavior, and mean depth allow penetration during collisions. Maxwell gives the correction force after collision, and F tire 1 is the direction of the primary friction, mu1. So think of them as tuning knobs that make the simulation behave closer to reality. Similarly, add for the remaining three wheels and the base link and launch the spawn robot file. So now it looks much closer to reality. But how does robot knows where it is? Like, assume if I blindfold you and ask you to walk 10 steps forward, can you roughly estimate where you are? Yes, probably, maybe. That's autometry. So the robot keeps track of the wheel rotations. If the wheel rotates this much, this estimate robot moves this much. If the left wheel moves more than right wheel, probably turn. It receives data from the wheel encoder that estimates the robot's state. But estimation is not reality. If the wheel sleeps, the robot thinks it has moved, but actually it didn't. This creates the perfect need for sensor fusion, which will be see later on in the session. Now that robot estimates its position, let's visualize its trajectory. I will provide you with a trajectory server package after the session. So add it to your workspace and build it and source it. Then in the terminal, go and launch the robot and in the terminal to run the trajectory server node. And just remember to source both the terminals before running the commands. I use the Gazebo GUI to move around and you will then observe the green colored path as the bot moves. You can share the circular path of the bot. So till here any questions? You can raise your hand. We will unmute you. Okay, so now moving to sensors. Until now, the robot knows only about itself. Now let's help it understand the world. In Gazebo, we can attach virtual sensors to our robot, just like we would attach real sensors in the real world. Without sensors, Gazebo is just like a 3D animation. Sensors allows the robot to interact with that virtual environment and gather information from it. Just like we constantly use our eyes to observe our surrounding, and similarly sensors continuously monitor the environment. This is where ROS2 comes into the picture. The sensor doesn't directly talk to our algorithms, instead it publishes data to ROS2 topics. So when we see something, our eyes collect information. Our brain processes it. Exactly the same pipeline exists in robots. Camera acts as the robot's eyes. You can check here with several ROS2 applications. Now to add camera, we have to define camera module in robot's body and give our simulated camera real features using Gazebo reference tag just like we used to add surface properties in Friction. Here we modify two files, the URDF one and the Gazebo plugin one. The URDF which tells where the sensor physically mounted and the Gazebo plugin tells how should the sensor behave. So let's update the URDF first. In step 1, attach the camera to the page front with the joint type fixed and give it mounting position and define parent link. Then we create the camera body with mass and add inertial properties. After that, we will add collision model for physical interaction, visual model for simulation visual, and gazebo color. Here we have another camera link. But why? Because ROS robot frame follows different coordinate system than what computer vision algorithm expect. As you can see, for robot frame, X points to forward, Y to left, and Z up. But computer vision expects the X right, Y down, and Z to forward. That's why we have two different links, camera link, which specifies the camera, where the camera is mounted on robot, and the camera link optical, which tells how it sees the world. So whenever we buy a camera, we check resolution, field of view, image quality. Same things are configured here. So we update the Gazebo plugin file to equip our camera model with these real features. First of all, we add the sensor name and type in horizontal field of view in radians, which is roughly here 80 degrees. Then give image resolution, format specifications, then add near clipping plane to clip the objects between 10 centimeters from camera, and far clipping plane to avoid infinite distance images. Also, we add sensor noise to mimic real camera, then define optical frame and camera info topic and keep the sensor always on by setting its Boolean value to true with update rate and with update at 20 frames per second. And also keep the visualizers true to view the images in Gazebo itself. And finally, image topic. After building the two files, we can check the URDF and we get to see the two transform frames on the camera model. One is the camera link and other one is the camera link optical. On the right side, we have the robot model with camera at front. So is our bot ready to see the world? Not yet. So we have to add the camera topic arguments in the Gazebo node bridge as well to transform the Gazebo messages to ROS compatible messages, as both are different softwares. We already have some bridges like the clock, command bell, or DOM. Similarly, we add two image arguments to forward them from Gazebo to ROS. Now let's test the camera topic in our ways. So for that, just launch the robot and go to add by topic and then click on image. It's a demo of the same. As you click on the image, you can see the image on the left side. You can drag it and also increase its size to get a better view. And also we can see the nodes that we added, the camera image and the camera info node topics by just running the roster topic list. Also, we can see the image stream using RQT. Just type RQT in another terminal, go to plugins, visualization image, and then view, then move the pod using Gazebo GUI and can see the image stream. As you can see, the pod moves. But now imagine streaming a 4K movie using mobile data. Bandwidth will disappear instantly. Same issue here. Raw images consume huge bandwidth, so we compress those images before transmission. So for that, we have to first comment the camera image topic from Gazebo bridge node, as we will create another node to transport that compressed image from Gazebo to RAW. Here we give the compressed JPG quality as 75 for better resolution plus less bandwidth. Also, we have don't forget to add this node to the launch description at the bottom of the spawn file. Now let's test the bandwidth. In terminal 1, launch the robot. In terminal 2, type RQT and then go to plugins, then topic, and then topic and then topic monitor. From there, you get this type of window. So I ran it before, then the bandwidth was coming out to be 8.38 Mbps. But after the compression is done, it was around 100 Mbps. This significantly changes the case for wireless robot systems. Similarly, you can also see the compressed image from RQT and get all the topics by just running the roster topic list. But ROS without errors, that's impossible. So we encounter another issue here about the camera info that it expects the image on camera info topic. But we're receiving image on image camera info topic. So we need to map camera info to camera image camera info. We do this by the help of really node of topic tools package. So let's create the mapping node and add it to the launch description at the bottom. When you launch, you will get to see both images on both the topics. Also, we can check the bandwidth changes with the compressed image quality parameters on runtime by with this RQT feature. Just run RQT reconfigure by this command and change the image parameters as you want. Sorry, but okay. By now our camera can see, but it doesn't know distance. So RGBT camera adds depth information along with the normal RGB image. Now robot knows what it sees and how far it is. And its common roster applications are listed here. Now to add RGBT camera, we have to replace the with conventional one in the Gazebo plugin file as it stores the camera features. We will change the sensor name and type to RGBD and add horizontal field of view, image resolution, near and far clipping planes, just as did for the camera. Also, we have to add two more topics, depth image, which gives the grayscale values corresponding to the distance of each pixels, and points, which give 3D point cloud of the environment to forward from Gazebo to ROS using the parameter bridge node and spawn launch file. On the right side, you can see how grayscale the depth image looks like. But again, we encounter issue. Observe on the left side, the orientation of the point cloud is incorrect because we are using the camera link optical as frame ID, which doesn't follow the ROS coordinate as we saw earlier in the session. Though it works fine for 2D images. So just replace the camera link optical to just camera link, which follows the ROS coordinate system. So now on the right hand side, we can see the correct point clouds of the environment. One more interesting thing about point clouds that you can just build a basic map of the surrounding using point clouds by increasing the decay time to around 30 seconds. As you can see, as the bot moves, map starts building around the bot. So any questions? Any questions still you can raise your hand. We will unmute you. Okay, fine. So by now we saw that the camera is great, but what if the light go off? Then vision struggles, but LiDAR doesn't. LiDAR shoots millions of laser beams, measure return time, and then calculate distance. Imagine standing in a dark cave and shouting. Echo tells you how hot the wall is. LiDAR does this with lasers. Mainly 2D LiDARs use for flat laser scan and 3D LiDAR for detailed 3D point cloud mapping. Some roster applications of LiDAR are listed here. Now let's map our world with 2D LiDAR. Just like camera here, we need to update two files, the URDF and the Gazebo plugin one. So let's first update the URDF file. We attach LiDAR to the top of the robot space with fixed joint, give it name, position, child and parent link. After that, we will create the LiDAR body and add initial properties. Then we will add the collision model and visual model, which both are cubes of 6 centimeters. Then we will update the Gazebo plugin to add features of real LiDAR to our simulated one, just like we did for the camera. Define sensor name and type the CPU LiDAR, which uses GPU for scan, which uses GPU for scan rather than burning your CPU. Then add update rate topic as scan, Gazebo frame ID as scan link. And then we define the horizontal parameters as scanning properties like a number of simulated laser ray samples, which is here 720, and then set resolution to 1, minimum angle to minus 180 and maximum angle to 180 to cover the entire 360-degree rotation. The range section acts as the clipping plane we saw in the camera Gazebo plugin. with rays originating from 5 centimeters extending to 10 meters. Also, we add noise to mimic real lidar and sensor and frame ID, scan link. Rest are the same like camera sensor always on, visualizing gazebo as true. Finally, at the perimeter bridge topic as we added for the camera and RGBD for scan messages to transport them from gazebo to ROS. On the right hand side, you can see the scan link transform frame and the laser scan points in red color. Since we did visualize true in gazebo plugin, we can see the LiDAR scan in gazebo as well. Just go to the three dot menu and type visualize LiDAR. Click on refresh button. You can see the scan topic in the blue colored LiDAR rays. Similar to the RGBT point clouds, here also we can get a basic mapping of the environment by just increasing the decay time and move our pod the surrounding. Now move on to 3D LiDARs, which gives the 3D mapping instead of just flat scan. To add 3D LiDAR, we just need to add vertical scan parameters along with the horizontal to cover whole 3D space. Inside the vertical tag, we will add vertical laser ray sample size, which is A32, and minimum and maximum angle. And forward one more topic to Gazebo Bridge node to get the 3D point cloud. Is shown a demo video of the 3D LiDAR environment mapping. Now imagine someone rotates your chair. Even with your eyes closed, you know you are rotating. How? You have internal sensors. So similarly, robots needs one too. So I may access the robot's net sense of balance. It measures acceleration, angular velocity, and orientation. To add IMS sensor, we again need to change those two files, the URT from the Gazebo plugin file. With little update to our fault file as well, just as we did for the other sensors. Firstly, add IMU link to robot phase. We are just adding a joint here without any inertial collision and visual model to keep it simple. Then we will add IMU system plugin into Gazebo world to import physics related to it. After that, we will create Gazebo reference to make the IMU work like a real sensor with similar tags. We support the camera and LiDAR, like always on, visualize true, update rate topic, Gazebo frame ID, and finally add this argument to bridge the Gazebo to ROS messages in spawn robot launch file. Okay, so let's just see what the IMU prints as we move the pod. So just open the topic monitor using RQT and check on the IMU and go to orientation, angular velocity, and linear acceleration. You can see the changing values. Would you trust a single source for your exams? Obviously, no. No. Similarly, we can't trust Odom or IMU alone because odometer drifts and IMU is noisy. So each sensor has some limitations. So instead of trusting one sensor, we just combine them. That's called sensor fusion. Imagine tracking a car. Your prediction says it should be here, but GPS says no, it's somewhere else. Both are imperfect. So who do you trust? A weighted combination of both. That's Kalman filter, which we studied in our session 2. The filter continuously repeats two steps: predict next state, then correct the prediction using the new measurements. Then it combines both. In the right side, you can see the car trajectory with noisy GPS data. Shown in green, the blue one is the filter trajectory by Kalman filter, and red shows the error bounds. Kalman filter works well for the linear systems, but robots don't move in straight mathematical equations. They turn, they rotate, their motion is nonlinear. Therefore, we extend Kalman filter into EKF, the extended version of Kalman filter. So that's just how EKF gives better path estimation than ODOM. First, we will make a directory named config inside the ARC Gazebo census package. Then create ekf.yml config file and add the config folder to cmixlist.txt file. Under the install section, also we need localization package. So to install by sudo install rosazzi robot localization. Here firstly we will update the frequency, add the update frequency and turn on 2D mode for frame transform as true as we want EKF to print that filtered or the transform data. But we'll keep the published transformation false to use our sensors only for acceleration data. Now coming to the frame section, we have map frame shared to map, which is global frame and corrected using localization. An ODOM frame as robot ODOM frame generated from build encoded data. Base link frame as the base footprint which acts as the robot frame to keep stable, not jittering like baseline. Finally, world frame as the ODOM because we want to publish that filtered pose in our ODOM frame. After that, we will fuse the ODOM and IMU data such that EKF uses wheel odometer data for forward, sideways, and yaw velocity. That is the angular velocity about z-axis and ignores everything else. From ODOM and from IMU, it takes roll pitch, yaw, angular velocity about z-axis and linear acceleration. Now, the process noise covariance controls the EKF, what to trust more, census data or its own estimation. Like if the covariance value for forward velocity is around 0.001, then it uses its own prediction and its covariance is more. Then EKF uses trust census measurement more. The initial estimate covariance tells EKF how confident is about starting state when the filter node begins. Small value means high confidence, while large value means low confidence. I will just do few tweaks in the robot launch file, comment the transform done by the bridge node to let EKF do that, and create another EKF filter node to run our config file. And then also add another node to turn on the trajectory server, and finally add those nodes to robot description. Now launch the file and move around. You observe the raw odometry in yellow, which starts drifting and noisy, relative to filtered odometry, as you see in the green color. We will learn more about EKF and its use cases in localization in the next session. Before we move ahead, let's take a quick look at how far we have come. At the beginning of our today's session, we had a robot that could simply move. The first thing to do was to improve the robot itself using a skid steer configuration, making it much more stable, closer to real world robots. But then we realized something important. A robot can't move properly without understanding the physics of the world around it. That's why we introduced friction in Gazebo, allowing the simulation to behave more realistically. Once the robot could move realistically, another question appeared. How does the robot know where it is? That led us to odometry, where the robot estimates its position using wheel motion. And to actually visualize that estimate, we created the trajectory server, which essentially acts as the robot memory, showing where it believes it has traveled. But knowing where you are isn't enough. You also need to understand what's around you. So we started adding sensors. We gave the robot a camera to see the world, then an RGBT camera to understand depth, then LiDAR to measure distance accurately, then an IMU to understand its own motion and orientation. But every sensor has some errors, some drift, some are noisy, and some fail under certain conditions. So instead of trusting a single sensor, we combined them using sensor fusion. And finally, we used the extended Kalman filter or EKF to produce a much cleaner and more reliable estimate of the robot state. So if we summarize everything we have done so far, we have taught the robot how to move, how to interact with the environment, how to estimate its position, how to sense the world around it, and how to combine information intelligently. But here's the interesting part. Even after all this, the robot still doesn't actually understand what it's actually at. It can see, it can measure, it can estimate, but can it recognize a person? Can it identify a bottle or can it follow an object? Not yet. And that's exactly what we are going to solve next. So before that, if any one of you have any doubts, then you can raise your hands. We will unmute you.
Yeah,
Can you speak
so
now?
yeah, I wanted to understand more about the LiDAR sensor. So, I just like how does the point cloud method work exactly? Like, what, can you like elaborate a little bit on
Actually, it uses like both horizontal and vertical ladders and then measures the distance. And then according to the distance value, it like gives different colors to the surrounding objects. So
that?
that's
So
great.
it's like a depth scanner. It's like a depth
Yeah.
camera. All right.
Yep, you can assume it's that camera like 360 rotation.
Okay.
Like you, thank you. Now think
One more
about
thing.
your eyes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. How do you measure the uncertainty in the values from lidar and like other sensors?
Repeat again.
How do you measure the uncertainty in the data that's coming from your lidar sensors and other sensors?
Like we are not using them for like tracking the path. We are using ODOM, the wheel encoders, and timing sensor.
Okay. All
Not
right.
using
So
lidars.
we just use that to map out the area. We don't use it for localization.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So our eyes don't actually understand anything. They simply capture light. It's our brain that interprets the information. Similarly, sensors only collect data. Perception is the data. Perception is where the data becomes understanding. And that's where our robot starts becoming truly intelligent. OpenCV is basically a toolbox for computer vision, which can detect objects, estimate depths, and used for ARCO market detection and integrate with deep learning models. Here are some of the applications and what it provides. Since most of us know what is OpenCV, so rather than just theory, we will explore one of the application of OpenCV, that is object detection, and make our bot to chase a red ball. So the complete pipeline looks like firstly our camera captures the image, OpenCV processes it, identifies the red pixels, find the ball center, and finally generate velocity commands and starts moving. So let's go to build our chase the ball node. First create another package named ERC Gazebo Sensors PY inside the source directory of our workspace. Then navigate to ERC Gazebo Sensors PY directory inside that and create chase the ball .py file and make it executable and add it to the scripts.py. And also you have to install OpenCV package. You can install it by any of the two methods like install OpenCV contrib Python or install OpenCV Python. Also you have to test the installation. So just import CV to a CV, print CV.version. And also you have to ensure that NumPy version should be less than 1, otherwise it may cause conflicts with OpenCV. So let's begin toward chasing the ball. At first, we will create image subscribers such that the OpenCV node can receive the image, then add velocity publisher to publish the command velocity after we find the ball, and initialize, initialize the brace so that it uses the latest frame in the init function. Now in the image callback function, images are stored and converted to OpenCV format, which is BGR. It's different from the normal RGB. Then we will create display image function and add OpenCV window to show the detection. Inside the loop, we run image processing step and display the image which are like which received the latest frame. And for quitting the OpenCV window, we define another function here, and then finally add spinning thread to continuously update the frame data and send that to image callback. After this, we are set to run our OpenCV window. Now we can only see what the image topic is publishing. So we have to add some more changes to process that red ball and show the detection in OpenCV window. So let's update the init function to define separate node for spinning because we don't want that process image function execution to interfere with the spin thread. Then we will define spin thread function separately such that it continuously gets raw images and runs image callback. And in image callback, we add a thread lock to prevent the node from crashing if it doesn't properly receive images, and also remove that spin thread function that we added in the display image function earlier. After that, we will add a stop function to join all the threads when node stops and call this function at the bottom to stop the node properly. Now we will create image processing step, the process image function. First create initial velocity message, create the image, get the image size, then split it into RGB channels. Then we will create 3 OpenCV visualization images, the red mask, which the red mask which gives the binary detection image, contour mask which gives the ball outline, and the crosshair which gives the position of the ball center with respect to the image center. So still more changes we have to do, then find red object boundaries and select largest of them and compute its centroid. Then we will use OpenCV window to draw contours, centroid of ball, crosshair with horizontal and vertical red lines passing through the ball centroid, and blue vertical line which passes through the image center. After that, we will convert the VGR format of OpenCV image to RGB, and then thresholding is applied to isolate red pixels and generate a binary mask. And we finally display all the OpenCV windows, the original image, binary mask, contour, and crosshair. Uh, so everything is messed up. So after running the code, you can see we get 4 different windows with first one the original image, then binary mask image, object outlined with centroid, and a crosshair tracking window. but handling those four OpenCV windows is itself challenging. So we overlay the other three OpenCV windows on the original image. So for that, we will define the starting position, then initialize the first window position, and then loop through them. First of all, then we resize them, convert from grayscale to RGB, if any, and paste the windows, then move to the next position for adding new window. We will repeat the same process for 3 times. So after adding the add small pictures function and the result window to the display image function, again run the node. This time we can see all the windows in a single frame, which is easier to handle. Now everything is done. So finally we will add velocity commands as per the ball position. That if the ball is centered, then we will not apply any acceleration or give any yaw, then just go straight with some linear velocity. And if it is not centered, then we rotate it such that it gets to centered to the center of the ball, and then just go straight and chase. And also, if no ball detected, then it will remain stationary, as given in the else command here. Now here a demo of the bot chasing the red ball. As you can see, the contours, the bot moving toward the ball. So we finally created the chasing the ball. So any questions till now? So let's move ahead. Now color detection works perfectly. But what if the object is not red or any normal standard color? And what if you want to detect real objects like person, chair, bottle, car, dog, etc.? That's where YOLO comes. YOLO stands for you look only once. Instead for searching images multiple times, it analyzes the entire image in a single forward pass through a neural network that has been trained on large data sets. You can see here some those two applications of YOLO V8. But YOLO V8 can do much more than just object detection. It can perform instant segmentation, which like it can identify exact pixels belonging to the object. Also, it can detect body key points like head, shoulder, legs, hands, etc. That's human pose estimation. And also it can do object tracking, like it tracks object across video frames, meaning it can not only detect a person, it can detect body joints, track movements, and understand scene structure. In this section, deep, we will dive into the real-time object detection in ROS. Here also, we will see how real-time object detection works in ROS using YOLO V8. First, we will create another detection node file, that's YOLO detector node.py in the ERC Gazebo Sensors py package, similar to the chase the ball py file. Also, you need to install the Ultralytics package to use OpenCV in your system. So just install it by pip install Ultralytics. Then we will create the node step by step. So most of the rows to node remain same as the OpenCV. The major difference is instead of writing handcrafted image processing logic, we pass the image through a neural network. We will load the YOLO model. I am using here YOLO 8.8s.pt, which is both faster and accurate. You can also use YOLO V8 and.pt, which is very faster than this model, but is less accurate. Then it will subscribe to the camera image topic and create OpenCV bridge, then create lock and separate spin thread, just like the OpenCV node. Similar to the OpenCV, we here also create the spin thread function, image callback, and stop functions. Now we will create the OpenCV window to show the detections and set the initial window size, then run the detection and display continuously in the window. So what's the difference from OpenCV node? So when the run YOLO function, we define confidence threshold. The results with confidence below this will not be displayed on the window and run the interface for all the results with confidence greater than that threshold, which I have set here for as 0.35. Then we will loop through all these results and extract bounding box coordinates, get class and confidence. And then we will convert the class ID to class name and add them to dashboard list. Then we will choose object color from class ID and draw bounding box around the object and create label list above the bounding box and add text parameters and draw label backgrounds, give text textures and calculate the object center. After that, we will calculate FPS, which tells us how many images per second the robot can process. Then we create dashboard panel and add title, display FPS, object count, and detection list on it. Then we finally combine both camera and dashboard and return the final image. Now we run the node along with the launch file and you can add objects into the world to see the detections on the dashboard. Here I've shown for the two objects, a fire hydrant and the for a person. You can see the FPS value, the detections, object count, and fire hydrant with its confidence value. Similarly for the person. So have you noticed something interesting here? Like for the OpenCV, we had to carefully define what red looks like. For yellow, we don't define any color rules. We didn't run process image function. The model already understands what a person and fire hydrant looks like. That's the advantage of deep learning model. So now let's quickly connect everything we have learned in our next half of the session. We started with perception. We explored how robot process and understand visual information using OpenCV. We then brought perception into ROS by building a robot that could detect and chase a ball, creating our first perception to action system. Next, we moved beyond simple color detection and introduced YOLO V8, which is a powerful AI model capable of recognizing multiple objects in real time. Finally, we integrated that YOLO V8 with ROS, enabling our robot to not just see the world but also understand what's around it. So in summary, we have taken our robot through a complete journey, seeing, tracking, understanding, and that's what modern robotic perception is all about. So, any questions about the perception part? You can raise your hand. We will unmute you. So in the upcoming session, is a teaser. Now a robot can move, it can see, it can understand. The next question is, can it build a map? Can it localize itself? Can it navigate autonomously? So that is exactly where we will head next. But localization, SLAM, and autonomous navigation in the next section and get the basics of robotic arms. Here is some examples what you're gonna build in the next session. A map of the environment, then use the localization and navigation, and do the basics of robotic arms. And also got to learn some more configurations. So thank you. The session is concluded from our side. If you have any doubts, then you can ask.